know, I don't want to get too pigeonholed with this idea of psychedelia because it's almost like you get too attached to one word that's a category that represents something in people's minds. But to me, it's just a period of music in the late 60s when I think people actually just spent a lot more time on their albums. They were a lot more ambitious, and you know, people like Brian Wilson and the Beatles and a lot of other bands, they spent so much time with the orchestration, and they really wanted to make movies that were, albums that were like movies or song cycles that were very epic and sort of really thought about and took you in many directions, and it wasn't just a bunch of songs on the record. And I think then punk happened, and trying too hard or being too elaborate became sort of out of fashion or went out of fashion. But I actually think for me, it's what stands out about albums like Sgt. Pepper and, you know, Dark Side of the Moon, whatever, these long epic psychedelic records, is not that they're necessarily psychedelic, but just that they're the sort of magnum opuses of their time. They're these incredibly well constructed and beautifully developed music, and I think that's what I relate to personally. I'm not going to speak for you, is that it's really just a period of music when people really went all the way and really followed through and tried really hard to, you know, make all the sounds exciting and make all the songs as interesting as possible, and you know, that's kind of what we're attracted to, is just really, you know, being epic and interesting and exciting and having lots of different things happen, as opposed to just, you know, playing a bunch of songs, which is cool too. I mean, I'm a fan of music like that, but that's not really what we're interested in so much. I mean, I don't think it was a golden era for just psychedelic music. It was a golden era for all music, funk music, R&B, Motown, and it was the best period for film. I mean, from Fellini to Bergman to, you know, Antonioni to everybody. I mean, it was just, it seemed like it was a golden era for culture and music, and I don't think we can get away from that. I mean, anybody who's interested in music and art and culture, unless you're going to look to, you know, classical music and opera or something, the 60s and early 70s was really sort of the peak.
For technology as well, recording technology, you know, the best gear. I guess that kind of came out of the Cold War era. It was kind of like this bubble that had just burst out of the conservativeness of the 50s and all the like the budding technology and the sexual revolution. Yeah. It just all collided into.
I think you mean more like the Second World War is what created all the compressors and limiters and all of that really good machinery because of the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the radio technology. And you know, the best hi-fi systems are famously from the early 50s actually. So stereo equipment has been going downhill since the 50s because that was when all the vacuum tubes were like this big, and so, you know, every transistor was essentially a giant glass tube, so the amount of the bandwidth for the electricity was very big, so it made the quality of everything really, you know, sound beautiful. Apparently, I mean, I've actually never listened to on an early 50s hi-fi, but if you read all the stereo magazines, that's what they say. So I think that was sort of a peak for a lot of things, and things were hand-wired, and they used like robust materials, whereas now everything's, you know, plastic and disposable, and I think that has to do with why the quality of film was so beautiful in those days. But, you know, I mean, there's an upside to mass production, is that, you know, things are more available to more people. But I do think that the 60s was a peak of culture for art and technology. And, you know, we're still kind of chasing that dream.